what would you share was the one belief that made you millions, but also nearly cost you your life?
Success is not measured. It's not measured, and it can't be measured, and you can't measure yourself by money. And when you live every day with a weight, imagine a cement bag in your chest every day. That's what it felt like living. I was going to jump off a building, so I decided which building to go to. I looked at 2 or 3. I worked out the access points on the building. I knew how to get up through the fire escape. I knew how to get up onto the roof. I went back to the UK. I think a law should be that everyone, by law, has to spend half a day a month volunteering. You very quickly start to learn that there's people out there, they're in a lot worse place than you are.
It's just like the energy in there, it's just infectious.
I can't tell you how selfish I am. Why are you proud of who you are? And what have you done today, this week, to make a difference to somebody else? Mark Zuckerberg's not successful to me. Elon Musk is not successful. They're rich and they're very smart business people. I think it'd take $4 billion to solve homelessness in California. Go fix it. I know that you actually don't need a lot of money. You just don't. People are seduced by what they watch on television and what they watch on social media.
What is your definition of success now?
Interesting question.
Welcome to another episode of the Transformation Code. If you are new here, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And if you have listened over and over again, really appreciate you having you back. My name's Sam. My role is to get experts in on this podcast and to get their stories and their transformations into your ears, into your eyes, so that you can transform your life and go from A to B, and while feeling empowered and alive in the process. So for today, we have a special guest, none other than Spencer Lodge. Spencer Lodge he's built 9-figure companies. He has a podcast called The Unscripted with Spencer Lodge, where he's had guests like Tony Robbins, Sarah Davies, Stephen Bartlett, Lewis Holmes, just to name a few. So these are big names. Spencer, he's gone through his own journey where he's built a lot of success, and then he had to tune into a really dark day where he nearly took his own life. And in today's episode, we'll dive into how he got to that point despite having so much money and so much success on paper, and how he was able to rewire that and continue to grow his wealth, grow his companies, but also feel more inspired and alive and connected in the process. I really believe you're going to learn a lot from this episode, and it's worth taking this time to listen in. There's some golden nuggets as well. I remember one piece in the episode, Spencer shares how he was able to get Tony Robbins on his podcast. Tony Robbins on his podcast. And he shares the backstory of how he was able to do that, so you can learn how you can also connect high caliber people like Tony Robbins. How amazing is that? So tune in, listen in, let this code activate something deep within. Enjoy. So Spencer, I'd like to start with a deep, vulnerable, and high value question for the entrepreneurs that are listening. Are you all good to go there?
Sure, take it away. We'll see how we get on.
All right. So you've built 9-figure companies, and you've openly shared that you had some moments of, even wanting to take your own life. And what would you share was the one belief that made you millions, but also nearly cost you your life?
Interesting question. I don't think there's one belief. I think the belief to make the money that I made came from my dedication to the skill that I believed I needed to have to become successful, and that was essentially sales. And so I took sales very seriously, like a surgeon would take their industry seriously, or a lawyer or anybody else. I didn't look at it like most people do in sales. They just, think about the gift of the gab, or be an extrovert or a good communicator. To me, it was a craft. So that's what helped me make money. I think what the probably the constant feeling through my life was that I wasn't enough, and the constant feeling of I'm not worthy, no matter how successful I was, played a role. And so when there came a time of stopping working for a while and contemplating, my mind just went deeper and deeper into that. And I became obsessed with that and overwhelmed with that. And that's when it started to take me on a spiral of depression. I think all the time I was going 100 miles an hour and not stopping, it kept that at bay because I had something ahead of me to focus on.
Mm. And when was that belief of not feeling enough? When was that formed?
Oh, I think that's formed for all of us in our childhoods in some way. My parents got divorced when I was young. My dad went to live and work overseas. I felt deserted to some degree from him, which I really struggled with. And then I struggled at school. I didn't do very well at school, and I was bullied quite badly at school as well. So I think that all came from that part of my life, and I don't blame my dad for 1 minute, but that's the outcome, I think, of what happened to me.
Yeah, and that period of your life. So we go back to being in school and those days which were more challenging as a child. Like, are they areas that you have explored and looked at, or how do you work with those periods of times?
I try to forget about them. That's the easiest way, is because I'm not sure that dwelling on stuff. A lot of people say, I'm going to do some deep work to uncover X or uncover Y and try and heal from this and heal from that. I'm not entirely sure it makes any sense to spend time in the past. It's not going to change. You can create new memories and new experiences as you move forward, which can sometimes soften the intensity of those previous experiences. And I know there'll be a million psychologists that might listen to this going, no, that's rubbish. You've got to go and deal with it and, solve the problem. But I'm 55 years old. I'm not entirely sure that's true.
Interesting. So that period of time for you where you almost hit rock bottom, if you don't mind going there, what was the experience like for you then? Was that the period where you took it away from work, just so I can understand the picture there?
So what you're dealing with is a childhood that was challenging. The bullies really were the motivation to do well, because the bullies kept reminding me that I was nothing. And so building a career and being successful was really important to shove it to the bullies. If I'm really honest, up until I was in my mid-40s, I still think about Paul Fowler and Justin Zimmerman every day. I did anyway. And so it was to get it, to them really more than anything else, to remind them that I was somebody and nothing mattered more to me than to proving them that they were wrong and I was right, or I could be somebody. I think the darkest period of my life was in 2012 when 3 things happened to me in the space of a week, and those 3 things were so catastrophic in my life that that's when I went on a very dark journey for a period of time. So I'd spent 16 years with business partners building a company, and we reached an impasse, and they didn't want me anymore. And so it was like, you got to go. And so, and then I'd become so successful that I'd become almost a renegade. I was almost, and doing what I did, I was so good at it, nobody can compete with me. And because they couldn't compete, I became probably the most arrogant, obnoxious shit you could imagine. Full of my own self-importance and self-value, and I measured everyone by how successful they were rather than how good or kind they were, or a decent human being they were. And I was very judgmental of people, and I'm very disappointed in that person that I became, if I'm really honest. But I'd lost my job. I'd had spinal surgery 6 months earlier, and that same week that I lost my career in that business I'd grown, the surgeons had contacted me and said your operation had failed and you needed to have spinal surgery again. And so knowing what I'd been through and the thought of having to go through it again was just very, very dark and bleak. Because I'd never had an operation before. It was the first time. And then also that same week, my partner, who I'd been with for 7 years, didn't want to continue the relationship. And so I took those 3 things, and whether it was a week or 10 days, it was a short period of time. And what I agreed to do was go on gardening leave for a year. And going on gardening leave for a year meant I could go and have the operation. I'd lived overseas for many years and I'd always been working. So it meant I could go and catch up with friends and family and spend time doing stuff I hadn't done. But that was 6 weeks of the 12 months. And now what do I do? And so I just sat there at home, sat anywhere really, and just sat there and got sadder and sadder and sadder and lonelier and darker and emptier. Until I reached a point where I just said to myself, I'm not sure I'm of any value here. My daughters had a great mum, they had a decent stepfather, they had money, so it wasn't as if they weren't going to be okay financially. And I couldn't see what I was contributing. And that painful divorce I'd been through a few years earlier had also kind of contributed to the fact that I didn't think I was of much value to my daughters, or at least my ex-wife had reminded me of that. And so when you're in that place and you feel to yourself that you're no value anymore, then you also start to think, actually, everyone's better off if I'm not here. And that's now no longer depression and sadness and emptiness and loneliness. That's actually clarity. So what I'd gone through is this very dark period, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, actually, this is a solution. Oh, okay, now I've got the solution. Well, I might as well execute on the solution then, because I'm of no use to anyone. And when you're in that state, you're not depressed like you would see a typical person depressed. I wasn't sad anymore. I was now relieved because there was a way out. And when you live every day with a weight, imagine a cement bag or a bag of cement on your chest every day, that's what it felt like living. And so when you're realizing that cement bag can come off and the only thing you got to do is this, then go and get it done. And that's exactly what I did. I planned it. I went back to the UK, decided what to do. I was going to jump off a building, so I decided which building to go to. I looked at 2 or 3. I worked out the access points on the building. I knew how to get up through the fire escape. I knew how to get up onto the roof, so that was all relatively easy. And then the only thing I needed to do was to go and say goodbye to my kids. And so I went back to the UK to say goodbye to my children, which I was going back every other weekend anyway. And I've told this story before, but for your audience, my dad was at my house, and my dad's never at my house in the UK. In fact, I didn't even think he's ever been there. But his car was on my driveway, and he was in my house. And I get there, and I'm looking because he had his number plate. I'm like, what's he doing here? So I get out of the taxi, go inside the house, and my dad's in the living room watching TV. And I'm like, what the hell? How did you get in? He's like, the housekeeper let me in. And I'm like, where's the housekeeper? He said, oh, no, I got her number. I called her, and so she let me in. She's not here. Anyway, I've been down in London. I thought I'd come and see you. How are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. He said, go have a shower. I'll make you some breakfast. I'm down in London. While I'm here, I've got a mate I'd like you to see. He's a really good guy. I think he'd be really good for you to meet. He's a really fantastic guy. And, I've not seen him for a long time. So do you fancy doing that? And I'm like, not really. He's like, oh, come on. I've not seen you for a while. So I went and had a shower. He made me some breakfast. We got in the car and we drove. And my dad drove me to the Priory because my dad knew. He knew something was wrong. I'd not said a word to him, but he knew something was wrong. And many years later, in fact, this year, March of this year, or was it? No, March of last year. No, this year. I was with him and I spent a day with him, and we don't see that much of each other. And I just sat and asked him a load of questions. It was just me and him for a day and a half. And I just talked to him and I said, why did you do that? And he said, because I knew. And I'm like, how did you know? He said, because I nearly did it.
Wow.
And when he said that to me, it was very, very profound, obviously. And I'm so grateful that he did that now, but at the time I wasn't. And anyway, I was in the Priory for a few days, and they taught me to understand the damage it would cause my children. And that was the kind of the small, tiny shift that stopped me from going to jumping, okay, and reconsidering jumping because of them. Because up until that point, I'd decided, or I'd thought, I'd believed that I was better, they were better off without me. And when you think somebody's better off without you, and you really believe it, like a a Muslim believes in his faith or a Christian believes in their faith, you really believe it, it's hard to change. But luckily they got through to me, and that stopped me doing it. That wasn't the road to recovery, because we were well away from that, but it was at least stopping that defining moment happening. And then after that, it probably took, I would argue that I was probably clinically depressed from 2012 to 2018 or 19. And I was literally living one day at a time. And it was, every day was just one day, just take one day. And I healed, and I had many therapists and doctors wanting to give me antidepressants and all kinds of drugs, and and I didn't take any of them. And slowly I started to heal, because I started to find an opportunity to be in service of others. And by being in service of others, it changed all of my feelings towards my own situation. I worked with children that had been trafficked from Bangladesh. I worked with children that had been trafficked and abused in Nepal. And these kids from Bangladesh, who I got to work with and spend time with and fall head over heels in love with all of them, reminded me that my problems weren't problems. And I think a lot of the time we think our problems are really big problems. And that if you don't have context, they can be. But when you get context, these girls that I knew who I was spending time with were being made to get married at 12 years old to 30-year-old men, and then being impregnated and have sex with them and then get pregnant, at which they would potentially die in childbirth. And so I'm sitting here in absolute shock and horror that they're going through this. And then I'm sitting down in my room looking at myself going, and your problem's what? And that was really the healing. That's when recovery started. And it was like, I'd go and spend time with them, and it'd be this injection in my arm of gratitude. Not conscious, subconscious. And it would go in my arm when I was with them, and it would last 2 weeks.
What was that energy like? What were you learning from them?
I was learning that they could be grateful when they had nothing. I was learning that they could be happy when they had nothing, and the threats that they had around them. That the small things that they were getting were so insignificant to me, but so deeply meaningful to them. And it was really, they saved me.
Wow. Yeah. So on that journey, you had your dad, and then the kids, who were these big parts of your transformation, almost like saving your life, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing and opening up about that. If we could zone back to even those days, like what were the warning signs that were leading up to the days before you had the rock bottom moments?
So I'd become, in business, I'd become very successful, and I'd become bored. And because I'd become bored, I'd become, as I say, I turned into a bit of a renegade. I was causing damage to myself and other people around me. And I don't mean that with drugs and stuff like that, but I was not a very nice person. I'd gone from being someone that cared about people to only caring about myself, and I couldn't see that at the time, but I can, in retrospect, understand that. And I think it was because we were always pushing and pushing and working hard and pushing that I wasn't stopping to think about that. People loved me or hated me. They either despised me or they liked me. There was no one that just thought I was okay. I was all right. So I knew I was a kind of chalk and cheese, but I'd subconsciously created that persona. How
did it serve you?
When you're building a sales force of hundreds of people that are commission driven, you have to get them focused on stuff. And so I was very, very dedicated to achieving the goals and competing with who I was competing with to get that done. And so it served me financially. I believed I was giving them, the best training, support, and opportunity of a lifetime. And not everyone made it, and I'm not sure I did. I'm not an academic, so I wasn't the guy that was sitting reading books every night. I was running a lot of it on my dedication to the craft and of sales, really.
So it served you in the sense that, leading a team, it's like you have to have that, if you almost like liked by everyone, it's like that's just an illusion anyway, right?
You didn't need to be liked, you needed to be respected. You had people in there that didn't like you or were scared of you, but they respected you because you had something that they could learn that they didn't have. The ones that had big egos, didn't tend to respect me. Whether they were successful or not, they didn't tend to respect me. But I had a big ego too. So again, I looked at it then and I thought they were idiots, and I look at it now and I don't blame them. I wouldn't have respected me.
Got you. So like one of the warning signs there was, within your work. Was there any other warning signs that led up to that moment?
I don't, because work was everything. It was literally everything.
Like what would a day look like?
Oh, get up first thing in the morning, go and have a shower, do some exercise, not like I do now, but go and do some exercise of some sort. I was at work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was finished at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I would take the guys out for drinks every Friday night. I would travel on Friday night to Kuwait or to, Thursday night was the weekend here back then. So Friday and Saturday were the weekend. So I would leave here on a Friday night after I'd taken the guys for drinks. I'd fly to Cyprus where we had an office. I'd do Friday in the office in Cyprus because Friday was a work day there. I'd fly from Cyprus to Oman or to Kuwait where we had an office. I'd do the Monday or the beginning of the week sales meeting essentially in Kuwait or Oman. And then I'd fly to Dubai again in the evening, and then I'd be ready for work on Sunday morning here. So it was relentless, non-stop all the time. I'm not complaining about that though, because I enjoyed it. I lived for it.
Right, that was like your purpose.
Yeah, gave me my energy. Yeah,
got you. And then within that, like, how did you fit your family and your wife or your other areas? Fun, like,
so I got divorced.
Was there any of that during that time?
Yeah, so I'd got divorced.
Just work.
And I would travel to the UK every other weekend. So every other weekend, I'd leave Dubai on a Thursday night. I'd fly to London, go home. If I got home early enough, I'd take the kids to school and I'd do my work. I'd then pick them up. Sometimes I literally sat outside the school all day, just working on my phone.
Right.
Literally the whole, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. I'd pick the girls up. We'd spend Friday evening together, whatever they were small at the time. We spend Saturday together. And then Saturday night, I would take the 10 p.m. flight back to Dubai for Sunday morning's meeting.
Got you. So it's just full on, packed schedule. So during that time, there wasn't really much time to even think about anything else that was going on, or even like during that time, what was your state like? Like, how did you feel on a day to day, or was that not even a question? Was it just work?
Yeah, there wasn't a state. There wasn't me. I didn't understand. I wasn't focused enough on that. I'm a competitive person, so I was competing. And so I just had to win. And so whatever you do to win, you do. As long as it's legal and honest, and that's what I was doing,
So like Tony Robbins, like you've had him on your own podcast, which is just amazing. I'd love to dive into that. But like what Tony Robbins shares, where he's like, he's all about state, right? So what have you learned from Tony throughout this time that's transitioned you from the way you were living before to the way that you live now?
I don't think I learned this from Tony, because when Tony talks about state, if you go to any of his events, you're like, get in state, sit up. Okay, right, let's go. Get all that kind of stuff. It's just like, come alive, really, yeah?
Yeah.
I lived like that. In that permanent state of hyper whatever and drive. So I was never, the guy that needed to have a kick up my bum or have a chat with myself to get going. I was always in that place. What have I learned? I've learned some really valuable lessons, and I think the 2 or 3 most valuable lessons, one I think's cheesy, but the 2 or 3 most valuable lessons I've learned, number 1 is that kindness is a superpower, and I wish I'd have known that when I was younger. Because being kind really is a superpower. It's you think about these superheroes. You would solve all of the world's problems in 24 hours if there was a law that was brought in where everybody, by law, had to be kind to one person every day. You would solve the problems. So kindness was one thing. The other thing I think that is a really valuable lesson is really deeply trying to understand gratitude, and not on the surface level, gratitude's an attitude and all that, but like really trying to understand and be very conscious of understanding what you can be grateful for. And I think that anybody that masters that skill can live a really, really happy life. And at the end of the day, the goal, even though we don't always know it, the goal in the end is to be happy. Regardless of what makes you happy, it's to be happy. And I think the other thing that matters enormously, and again should be a law, is that if you're in service of others, you feel such a sense of meaning and purpose to your life. And so I think a law should be that everyone by law has to spend half a day a month volunteering. Now that could be working at a soup kitchen, that could be working at a dog sanctuary, that can be working at an elephant sanctuary, that can be helping kids like I help, but spending half a day a month by law volunteering really humbles you and gives you context on your own feelings. Because if you go and work in a soup kitchen in London in January and you feed people soup that are sleeping outside in the freezing cold, homeless, for whatever reason they're homeless, you very quickly start to learn that there's people out there, they're in a lot worse place than you are. And because of that, it can give you a context to your own misery, sadness, depression, whatever you want, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. And when you get that context, very hard to unlearn it because you've got it. My mum would say when I was a kid, eat your food. There's kids starving in Africa, eat your food, finish your meal. Don't leave anything on the plate. And you'd sit there, but you don't have the context because someone's telling you it. Okay. But I'm sure if you went to Sudan or somewhere in Africa where the kids haven't got food, or Nepal where I went, where the children, when they're 8 years old, all become prostitutes and they have sex with men for a packet of biscuits just so they can eat. And when you're with those types of people and you're in that environment, that for me gives you that context. And I think we all need that, because you and I could sit and go for a coffee later on tonight and you could tell me about all your problems. They could be huge to you. But
and they are, right?
Yeah.
Like in your own world.
In your own head.
Yeah, yeah.
But we need to put something else in your head to give that some contrast. And maybe those problems are really big. One of the girls said to me one day, I was a little bit distant. And I was sat there and
distant emotionally, or
yeah, I wasn't with them. I wasn't present. I was a little bit, and one of them came over to me and said, they call me Uncle Spencer. Spencer, what's wrong? Why are you sad? And I just said, I've got lots of things going on at the moment. There's a bit of stress and stuff with work. So I'm so sorry. I really am sorry. And she said to me, imagine your worst day ever. And I was like, yeah. She said, I don't think I could dream of a day as good as that. She's 15 years old. And she just sat there. We were sat on this little wall. And I was just like, wow. How can a 15-year-old give me that?
What did that do for you in that moment?
Switched everything, doesn't it? It switches in that moment. Yeah. My worst day ever is beyond the wildest dreams of her best day ever. And that little girl is now 20 years old, nearly 20 years old, 19 and a half years old. And she's just won a scholarship to the University of Kent to study biomedical science. And she leaves next week.
Amazing. So you've kept in touch with her.
I see them all the time.
Oh, wow.
The girls are they're in my life. You know.
Wow.
I was with them last weekend. I'll be with them next weekend. We do stuff together. They're you know, they're my friends. They're the best medicine I've ever seen anyone prescribe.
It's incredible. It really resonates too, because similar on my journey where I spend a lot of time over in Bali, and when I first went out there, I met a guy called Dedi, and he was local in Indonesia, and he went out of his way to look after, to teach the kids how to speak English and entrepreneur skills, because when he was growing up, he didn't have those skills, and they really served him once he learned them. So he would like teach them outside in his garden, just outside. There was only a few kids, and then we used to sit down after the gym and grab a coffee, and I just asked, like, what's your goals? What's your vision? And just his energy and everything about him, like his goal and vision was to build a school for these kids. So I go back to UK, and I was thinking, like, how can I like give back, and just ask that question, like, what opportunities are there? And then Daddy came to mind. So we had a phone call. Long story short, anyway, we ended up building this school in Bali, and now there's 250 kids that are registered there, and it runs 6 days a week. And when I go into that school, I'm in Bali, it's just like the energy in there, it's just infectious, and it just does something inside. Like the people who goes and visits, like it just shifts something inside. And I think it's because there's kids that on paper don't have anything, yet they're so happy, they're joyful, they want to be there, like they want to learn, they want to educate, and they're grateful. And there's something about that just electrifies your inside, right, from the inside out. So it really resonates what you shared.
And what you're feeling is not in their head. What you're feeling from what you see and what you hear, okay, is not what they're feeling. They're grateful, they're really grateful. They're excited. I get to go to lessons, I get to go to school. They're grateful. But what you're seeing is children where you come from, that's very normal. But over there, it isn't. And there's a real contrast to that. And that energy that you get is actually an energy that you create in your mind when you go there, okay? Because you're like, how cool is this?
Yeah.
And so it's a blessing, and well done for doing that. What a wonderful thing to do, what a wonderful thing. People talk about this kind of stuff, and they talk about selflessness. I can't tell you how selfish I am, because all of the things that I do for and with these girls and the kids, people think I'm a really good human being for doing it. But I remind people that I get way more than they do. The feeling that I get when I'm around them, the gratitude I have when I'm around them, it's actually quite a selfish behavior, because they became my drug, and it feeds me. And so whilst they're winning and we think what a good thing we're doing, the fact is, every time you go to that school, you're buzzing when you leave, aren't you? You walk out of that place and you're on fire.
Exactly.
Okay, you're taking that with you, okay? That feeling of being on fire. And how long that lasts, I don't know. Whether that's days or weeks, it doesn't matter, okay? But you can guess what? You can pop back there whenever you want to and go and do it again, okay? Fill yourself up and be on your way.
And I think that's where, like Tony Robbins, where he shares the secret to living is giving. I think that's where that comes in, because one of the reasons I think the kids are so happy in that school and in Bali in general, like the people there they're givers. Like it's part of their religion. They give, even though they don't have a lot. They're praying, they're giving. It's like just always of service, selfless. So it's no surprise that they're happy. So it's actually, there's the psychological thing, like for us, where we're like, right, this is actually, it really fills us up to give back. It makes sense. And it's like, what a beautiful way to inspire connection and inspire like gratitude inside, to actually do good and give, rather than to try and do it in more toxic ways of putting people down, or like what you were like the patterns from before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of something called the Kindness Diaries?
I've not, no.
Okay, so there was a show on Netflix called the Kindness Diaries. A friend of mine called Leon Logothetis is the guy that hosted that show, and he believed people were kind more often than not, and he went to seek kindness. So he traveled around the world, and he had to rely on the kindness of others. So he had a motorbike, so he could he was allowed to receive fuel, he was allowed to receive food, and he was allowed to receive shelter. And he would go on his way and he would meet people, and he had no money. So he had to do it for the show. He had to do it. And then what he did is that when he experienced an extreme act of kindness, he repaid it with a life-changing gift, because Leon is from one of the richest families in Greece, although he doesn't work in the family business. And so he was in Los Angeles, and this homeless guy said, look, I don't have much, but you, by all means, you can stay with me. I've got some boxes. I've got some blankets. You can stay with me. This is a homeless guy wanting to give. Do you need
Amazing.
socks? I've got some socks. And so this guy, Tony, the homeless guy, had been on, one heck of a journey, and Leon got him an apartment, changed his life. He was in India. There was a guy with a tuk-tuk that had been really kind to him, and he crashed his tuk-tuk and he damaged it. And because this guy, who arguably had £2.50 and a packet of fags to his name, was extremely kind to Leon. Leon bought him a new tuk-tuk. These are the kind of things that happened. But Leon was searching for kindness, and he said, I can find kindness everywhere. It's just that we're not looking for it. And I think most human beings actually prefer to be kind than they prefer to be anything else. You can take a grumpy old man, and if you can make him smile, you can get him to be kind. There's enough movies out there where there's been the grumpy old man, and there's the little boy next door, and the grumpy old man's been grumpy at first, and yet the little boy softens him and turns him into a good human being. But I think we have to talk about it in a less cliched way, and because it's a cliche, and gratitude's a cliche. It's said loosely, and when it's said loosely, it doesn't carry the meaning it should. And so we need to discuss gratitude with examples. And we need to discuss kindness with examples. And by doing that, we can make it conscious rather than subconscious or subliminal almost. And so when you hear this attitude, gratitude is an attitude and stuff like that, it's like, stop. I say to my staff, what have you done today that you can be thankful for? Okay, just one thing. Write it down, what you've been thankful for. Okay, and who are you kind to today? Who are you kind to today? Whether that's the security guard that you buy a coffee when you buy your own coffee, whether that's taking time at the coffee shop to engage with the people working there and find out how their day's going and what their families and what their plans are, and learning about them and showing a genuine interest. Whether that's, taking the time to take a new person who starts work at the company for lunch yourself, so that they don't feel so unwelcome. Whether you're, if you're a personal trainer in a gym and seeing a new person in the gym on their own that might be a bit heavy, going over and just saying, hi, if there's anything you need, can I help you? My name's Spencer and I'm the personal trainer here. I train the other people, but I can see you here on your own. Hey, I'm happy to be your friend if you want. Because it's such an intimidating thing to go to a gym, particularly when you don't look gym ready. It's a scary place to go. And so all these little things that we can do, that person that we walk past every morning on the way to work that we don't smile to, stopping and just saying hi. That person that's in our office building that we don't generally acknowledge, but we kind of know that both of us are there, that you just stop and say, hey, I love your jacket. They go, oh, right, really? Okay, little things that we could do in it. And I know there's lots of people sitting here going, yeah. But people really have to ask themselves a question. Go and look in a mirror and ask yourself, are you proud of who you are? If you are, why? Okay, why are you proud of who you are? And what have you done today, this week, to make a difference to somebody else? Okay, just what have you done? Ask yourself a question. And if you can honestly say, I did this, honestly and consciously, then good on you. But if you didn't, then maybe you can have a look in that mirror again and just look into your pupils and ask yourself a question. Would it hurt?
Would it hurt?
Would it hurt? Wouldn't hurt, would it?
Yeah. So I'm hearing now you've embodied this inside of your companies. So are these, like, gratitude is now systemized inside of the companies that you run?
I think again, you can't force everyone to be a certain way, but what you can do is encourage people to be conscious. And the only way you encourage people to be conscious is, first of all, to remind them by keep asking them. That's one thing. Another thing you can do is you can get other people to ask others as well. And you essentially create a culture by behavior. Culture's not a slogan. Culture's not a set of rules. Okay. Culture is where you shift people's behavior over a period of time. So, I took a bunch of people a couple of years ago to Rwanda to build a playground in a school. And the people that I took, we just had the absolute best time ever. I've got this playground that we're building in a school. There's 4 or 5 of us. We all wanted to do it. And the kids are playing football with some plastic bags wrapped in some fishing net. And we're playing football with them, with this tatty old thing that's like, it felt like, one of those scrunchies people used to shower with, yeah? It felt like one of those we were kicking around.
Were you in your suit?
Yeah, no. We were doing it with shorts and t-shirts. But I went and bought 3 footballs in town the next day, and the following morning we went there to the school, and I took one of the footballs out of the car, and I there's a big gate, and I knew the kids were playing on the dirt basically, and so I chucked the ball over. Well, we played football for 3.5 hours, and it was epic. It was literally epic until the headmaster came and said, look, they've got exams today. Is there any chance we can cut this? And I'm like, okay, last goal's a winner, But when you do stuff like that and you do it with people and everyone can experience that joy at the same time. I've never met anyone that I've taken to meet my girls that hasn't come away with a profound sense of meaning from it. And so, yeah, we have to be, as leaders, we have to be people that if we believe in that kind of stuff, we behave in that way, and we encourage people by learning experiences, not just by telling, okay, to understand what it's like. And most people will feel something. And it's what you want to get them to do is to feel something. And once they feel something, then you want to get them to remember that feeling, because it's that feeling that can take you away from your dark places. And it's that feeling that can make you a better human being. And whether you earn 1 million or 10 million or 100 million, or you earn 100,000, neither of those numbers make you a better or a worse person. And I'm so ashamed of myself for thinking that's what mattered when I was young, because it isn't what matters. It really isn't. There isn't an amount of money that we need to be valuable as human beings.
Yeah, earlier in the conversation, we shared about success was shared a few times. I'm curious, what is your definition of success now?
So Maria Conceição, who I work with, who brought 682 children here from Bangladesh, Maria is the most successful person I know. She's the pinnacle of success and achievement to me. 10 Guinness World Records, on a firm belief that she was going to save these children from the persecution they were experiencing. Mark Zuckerberg's not successful to me. Elon Musk is not successful. They're rich and they're very smart business people. But if you spend your life trying to make billions of dollars and you don't make a difference with that, you take Warren Buffett, when I die, I'm giving this much away. It's like, you don't need it now. You don't need it now. Homelessness in California can be solved. I think it'd take $4 billion to solve homelessness in California. Go fix it. Go fix it. What, you're going to wait till you die? Why do we need to wait till you die? Why do you need to wait? You've already said you're going to give it away. It's like, so they're the people that make a difference. And Jeff Bezos' ex-wife.
Why do you think they don't?
Because they've all signed up to this program that when they die, they're going to be given away the 90% of their wealth or whatever it is. But you take Jeff Bezos, his ex-wife, they got divorced. I don't know what she got, but she got many billions. She's given huge amounts of it away already because she wants to make a difference with that. She doesn't need it, so she wants to make a difference. And so when people get the financial success, I'm not saying give all your money away, okay? But success is not measured. It's not measured, and it can't be measured, and you can't measure yourself by money, okay? Yes, we all need financial security and we all want to do certain things, but I look at money differently now. I look at people wasting money. And then I look at what could be done with that money to help people that are suffering. And unfortunately, we're all different and we're all human beings. And so we'll see the world differently. How many cars do you need? Really, I'm not saying live like a peasant, but how many do you need? Okay. Once you've got your Aventador and you've got your Lamborghini, whatever it is, you've got your 4x4 and your sports car. How many other cars do you need? How many helicopters do you need? How many houses do you need? Now I'm older, You know, I used to have houses in lots of different places. Okay. I had them in Portugal, I had them in Florida, had them in Cyprus, London, UK, and here. Okay. I had these houses. You can't use them. I've been to Portugal twice. I bought a house there. I'm like, yay, good idea that was. What a waste of time that is. Cyprus, had a property in Cyprus. My parents stayed in that house more than I did. My property in America, I went there once. It's like, what do we need all these things for? And so now it's, you know, there are some religions where they give 10% of their income to charity. I don't know what the religions are always, but sometimes I'm like, that's not such a bad idea. You know, it's not such a bad idea. And I can't get righteous about stuff. And, you know, I respect everybody being different. But success to me is being the best version of yourself you can be. Okay. And leading with consideration, okay, and humility towards other people.
Nice. And is that what drives you to wake up at like 4:30 a.m. every day and be in the car and drive into the gym and working out and, you know, still building your businesses now, even though you've built 9-figure companies?
I made all the money I ever needed to make before I was 35. So it's never since been about money.
Amazing.
I spend way less than I used to, by the way. I don't know what to spend it on, because there's stuff that you used to buy that I look back on and I'm like, what was I thinking? You know, young people spend money on stuff and it's just like, what are you thinking? So when I look at building businesses and then waking up at 4:30 in the morning, I think all this is discipline and also routine. It's important to remember that. I get up at 4:20. I go to the gym at 5. I wake up and I have a routine. I wake up, I go across into the other bedroom. I have a shower in the other bedroom where my stuff is. My wife doesn't like me in waking her up. So I go across to the other bedroom. I have a shower. I put my sports gear on. I go to the gym. There's something I like about being in the gym before everybody else. I don't know what it is, but I like that feeling. I like the feeling of proving to people you can be 55 and you can still do that. I like sending out messages to get people to realize that exercise is really important. So, and I get to the office at 7:15. So I go home, shower after 2 showers before the day starts. And I'm in the office at 7:15. But I've always been like that. I've always been in the office early. So I'm not one of these people that evolved into it. I'm not a 5 a.m. club guy. If your day starts at 8 and it finishes at 8, there's nothing wrong with that. If your day starts at 12 and finishes at 12, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if my wife was sat here right now, she'd be rolling her eyes going, I don't know why he does it. I don't know why he does it. But that's because she's not a morning person. Now, my wife goes to the gym, I think, at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. But she'll be sat at midnight, you know, when I'm dead to the world, and she'll be alive with creativity and stuff like that. So I think you have to do you and what works for you and what feels normal for you. And as long as you're doing it, doesn't matter when you're doing it. Now, when it comes to building businesses, I'm building businesses at the moment to exit. I'm doing that. I'm conscious about that. I have a goal. I have a target. And again, when I exit, my primary driver for the exit is the employees that have shares. There's a lot of people in the company that own shares. We've got the biggest ESOP scheme in the world in terms of percentage of the company. And I want everyone that's worked really hard for the business to be able to, when we sell, buy a house, pay the mortgage off, set themselves up for life, whatever it is that their goal or ambition is, pay for their children's university, whatever it is. I want to be able to do that for them and know that I've done something good through that work. And again, I know that you actually don't need a lot of money to be very comfortable. You just don't. But people are seduced by what they watch on television and what they watch on social media. You know, people believe that if you're fit and healthy, you've got to have 8% body fat. Well, you haven't. You know, you can have 20% body fat and still be fit and healthy. People believe that, you know, you have to wear certain brands to represent yourself well. No, you don't. You don't at all. Okay. What What is attractive? If a man is looking for a woman, what's attractive to the woman? The car he drives? Really? Once she gets past those first couple of days, it will be his drive, his mission, his purpose, okay, and how he treats others. Because that's what she'll watch. You know, is he ambitious? Yeah. Is he working hard? Yeah. Does he want to be somebody? Does he want to achieve something? Does he want to get somewhere? Yeah. Okay. And is he a good human being? You know, and if he is, then they're the great things. That's what most women care about. And then, of course, you've got your shallow ones that, you know, are only interested in Mr. Bitcoin Billy or whatever it may be. But that's as I see things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I'm hearing there that the drive is still there because it's coming from a place of service. Like you're looking at the people, the shareholders, and it's like you're wanting to give back to them as well, right? Like create something.
I'm desperate for them to win.
Yeah.
I'm desperate for them to get a payoff that they can say, this was all worth it. You know?
You open for a deeper question?
Well, try me.
Yeah. If you could go back now to the Spencer who was in school with, you know, the bullies, and you could give some words of advice to that little guy, what advice would you give him?
Relating to the bullies, I would say to him, be patient, their time will come. To his future, I would say, work harder at learning skills that will be valuable to you in the future. And because that's what I didn't do when I look back on it. You know, there was so much that I got wrong in business in the early stages because I didn't learn about lots of basics, just about money, and didn't even understand that. But with the bullies, don't worry, their time will come. Because I had a moment with the bullies when I first bought my first fancy little car, my Golf GTI. And I was about 20. I'd left school at 16. Maybe I was 20 or 21. And I pulled up at a set of traffic lights. And a moped next to me pulled up. And the guy was looking at me through the window. And he kept looking at me through the window. And he had a crash helmet on, so I didn't know who he was. And then he lifted his visor up and he knocked on my window. And he went, and my nickname was Splodgy. Okay. And he went, Splodgy. And I looked up and it was Justin Zimmerman, one of the bullies. And I went, pull over, pull over. So we pulled into the bus stop just a few meters up the road. And he's like, oh, that's a cool car, mate. How when did you get it? Blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, I don't know. I'd had it a couple of months or whatnot. And he said, well, what are you doing for a living? Well, you're able to afford one of those. I said, no, it's not what I do for a living. You bought me that. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, that's what you did. You did that to me. You made me want to prove you so wrong that I was prepared to go out and work my ass off to show you that I could be better than you. So I just want to say thank you. And he looked at me and he was dumbfounded, and it was a real kind of like moment, you know. And that was kind of like really appealing to me because it felt I'd got one over on someone that was suffocating me. So
You feel a sense of peace and forgiveness
in that moment
now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got to, I don't know what it was, 42, 45, and it all disappeared. But the fact that I still talk about it at 55 and I know their names vividly, and I'm telling you here today in Dubai in August of 2025, okay, means that it must have had some profound impact on me for me to recount stories. You know, yeah.
What would you say today if they were sat across the room to you?
I would hope that their kids didn't suffer. I would hope that their kids had a nice upbringing. I hope they'd been kind to their kids, and I hope that they'd learned that their behavior was something they were ashamed of, but did something good about it. And I don't have any bad feeling towards them now at all. You know, in fact, it would be nice to see them.
Yeah, you'd enjoy it.
It would be nice to have a conversation with them. You know, and genuinely from a place of gratitude, say thank you. Because I had this problem with my daughter. So I've got two daughters. One of my daughters was struggling because she was being bullied. And it was a decision, do we take her out of the school and pull her somewhere else? or do we leave her in there to fight the bullies? And I obviously had a very big dilemma around this, because it was like, I eventually used that bullying as incredible motivation. And my brain space was, yeah, that would be good for her. She gets bullied, she'll react, she'll respond. She's my daughter, so I know what she's going to be like. She's going to respond, and she's going to be on fire when she goes for it. So we're going to leave her in the school. And that didn't actually work for her. The bullying didn't help her. I should have moved schools. My eldest daughter, she'd have you by the throat up against the wall if you so much as looked at her the wrong way. So she never struggled.
Right. Yeah, so just different characters.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think was going on for the bullies, like driving their behavior in those times?
Oh, I'm sure. When you're a kid, you don't know and you don't care because you're a victim. When you're an adult, you look at it, and there's clearly whatever's going on in their home. They're being exposed and experience stuff. They may be being bullied by someone bigger than them, so they look for other people to bully. You've got that. There's a million different things, and you'll never know. And sometimes they still don't realize later on in life they were bullies.
Yeah, just unconscious.
It's totally unconscious. But if they do, then they'll learn from that. And if you were a bully as a kid at school and you were mean to others, and you learn from those people later on in life you were really mean to them, I'm sure it'd be really painful to listen to. You'd be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure those guys would have had kids, and the last thing they ever want their kids to be is bullied, or their kids to be bullies.
So it circles back to the art of giving. It's like the opposite to the art of giving, right? It's like if a bully goes out and they cause pain to someone else, like you're on the other side of that pain, yeah, you use it as a fuel, but there's still pain. Mm-hmm. Whereas on the flip side of that, the art of giving, which is what you've later done in life now, is you've given back. Mm-hmm. And then it's that ripple effect where it's like give and give.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the bully is like pain on pain. So yeah, it's for both parties it's painful, right? It's like a low vibration. It's yes, it's hurtful.
Good point.
Yeah. So we're going to the Tony Robbins, because you've interviewed some amazing guests on your podcast. So you've Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Sarah Davies, Stephen Bartlett, just to name a few.
Yeah.
From the top of my head.
Yeah, loads. Loads. 350 something episodes.
Yeah. How did you go about getting a caliber of celebrity like Tony Robbins on your show?
Well, it's an interesting story. So the podcast was sponsored by an organization called Najahi. And Najahi is the Arab equivalent of Success Resources. The Success Resources were the people that used to put on all of these seminars for all of these speakers around the world for many years. And Najahi is Arabic for my success. And so we were sponsored by them. And the deal was, we'll make the content. The sponsorship will be free, but we'll make the content when you have speakers that come into town. And so we had been doing that successfully. And Ufa Mustafa, the boss of that company, the owner of that company, is a wonderful human being. And we worked really well together. And then she was bringing Tony to Dubai. And I'm like, yes. So I said to Ufa, well, look, we'd love to have Tony. He's in the Coca-Cola arena. We'd love to have him on the show. Can we get it booked in? And she said, I'm really sorry, you can't. You can't have him. He won't do interviews. And so we had Nick Vujicic, the guy with no arms and no legs, no worries. He was there. We had some other people, some other big names there, but we couldn't have Tony. So a friend of mine, Omar, and I sat down and said, right, how do we do this? And so he knew someone that knew someone who was in Tony's management. So we reached out to her and said, look, we'd like to interview Tony for the show. And she basically said no, just simply no. So then I found his publicist, Jennifer Connolly, and I reached out to Jennifer and I said to Jennifer, I'd love to have Tony on the show. She's like, no. So I sent her a bouquet of flowers. Thank you for considering us. Nothing. And I was like, it's a bit mean. So I then got some cupcakes made with her photo from LinkedIn on the cupcakes.
Nice.
And I sent her the cupcakes and she called me. She said, I don't like flowers, but I do like cupcakes. What do you want? I said, I just want a chance to be able to interview him. He's going to be in Dubai. I'm sponsored by the people that are bringing him here, blah, 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 blah. Please, can you make this happen? She said, I can't. Because this is the best I can do. Make a video, no more than 1 minute long, telling Tony why he needs to come on your podcast. I will give it to his cabin crew on his plane. When he flies over, he'll watch it. If he likes you, then maybe. So Omar and I made this really funny video, and we basically shoved all of Tony's lessons back at him. It's not about resources, it's about resourcefulness, and all that kind of stuff. And we sent this video, and he liked it. And he said, okay. And then the team got in touch with us, and we had a TV studio we organized, and they said, look, you've got 35 minutes for the interview. That's it. Okay, so just bear that in mind. And he came in, and usually there'd be 5 or 6 people in the studio. This day there were 20 odd people, obviously, because Tony's coming and my wife's there. Everyone wants to meet Tony. And the security team came in the morning, searched the place top to bottom. It was clear. And then he came in, and it was a 35-minute interview that then became 3 hours of an interview. Then every single person in the studio got photos, videos, Facebook Lives, calling people's mums, dads, brothers, sisters, chatting to people. He just sat there, and he was just so amazing for those 3 hours. And he had a really nice time. And we were so grateful that he came and did arguably it's not one of our best episodes, because we were both so blooming nervous. We've got him in the studio. We weren't asking as many questions or as deeper questions as we would like. But I went then, and then he left, and we were just all like, wow, Tony's been in the studios with us. And then the next day was the event at the Coca-Cola Arena, and there's 10,000 people there. Well, I go in there, I walk down the aisle towards the front while Tony's talking. Bear in mind, Sheikh Mohammed turns up and everybody else. I walk down the front. As I walk down the front, he's in mid-speech, and he said, guys, hold on. He said, have you ever heard of the Spencer Lodge podcast? And some people are like, yeah. He said, but this guy's here, okay? If you're not watching it, you need to watch it.
Amazing.
And he came off the stage, gave me a hug, went back on the stage and carried on. And obviously I was filled, with joy and excitement. And that kind of like cemented that relationship. And I've seen him once or twice since, and he's always been very gracious and knows exactly who I am. Hey Spence, how you doing? Nice to see you. And so when he's been back to Dubai, so yeah.
Amazing. So I'm hearing there's some pieces to that where you went above and beyond. It's like you didn't take the first no. And then you came up with innovative ways to reach Tony by going through like his staff, and didn't take that first no and just kept moving forward. I'm really curious, Spencer, what was going on in your system and like your nervous system before you met Tony and before that interview? Like, how were you able to contain yourself for that interview?
I think that because I was doing it with Omar, and Omar and I have got some good banter between us, and everyone in the whole building was just excited. And then he came, and it was just like, wow. So my nervous system, I just think it was just overwhelming excitement. This guy was my hero. I'd been to so many of his events. I've traveled all over the world to go and see him speak. I'd learned so much from him. He had a 6 CD set called Get the Edge that I listened to in my car for 4 years nonstop. I knew every word from Get the Edge. I could recount every single part of that I knew from front to back. And I'd learned so much that it was just so great to have him there, that we were just all buzzing. We were just all on fire. It was, it was just a very, very magical moment. And one that I'll, as I'm telling you, I'm alive right now, I'm very grateful for it.
Amazing. Yeah, what would you say to the listener who wants to build out their network with, high caliber people? Like, what would you say is the best piece of advice that you could give them?
So somebody that wants to build their network with high caliber people. Okay. First, if you're networking, then you need to network with the right people. So there's no point you networking with, your Sunday league football team unless they're all successful people. There are many organizations in every country where successful people get together. You've got YPO. That's a good example. You've got Rotary clubs. You've got stuff like that. You've got private members clubs, whether that's the Arts Club, the Capital Club here. All of these places exist where you can build relationships with people that are the kind of people you want to be around. Most of the time, people don't take that step though. They go networking at the local pub or the local village hall. They go networking at the local, solopreneurs community event. And that's not going to get you the right people. It's like if I need to network with footballers, I need to go where the footballers are. If I need to network with chefs, I need to go where the chefs get together. If I need to network with hoteliers, then I need to go where the hoteliers go. There's no point, trying to network with hoteliers and then going to the oil and gas exhibition, is there? It's not going to work for me. So it requires a little bit of common sense. I don't think that's the problem, because I think people can get past that planning stage. I think the problem is people actually taking the action. I think the planning is the easy. It's the taking the steps, it's the taking the deep breath and walking into that room of strangers and meeting them for the first time with confidence and an air of self-belief about you that is the big step. And that's what stops people doing it. So sometimes finding a partner in crime to do it with, finding someone that you can be brave with is an easier thing than just going on your own. It's like the fat guy that goes to the gym for the first time. How incredibly intimidating is that? You're not gym ready. You don't look like you should be in a gym, and you walk in there, you've paid your membership, and now you've got to go in, and there's all these people working out in their, in their spandex and with everything on show, and blokes ripped with biceps and triceps and whatnot, and you're there and you're, carrying an extra 25 kilos that you want to lose. And that for me is the step that's the toughest step, because you picture and put in your mind what it will be like. I'm going to go into this room full of 100 people and I don't know who anybody are. And what am I going to say? What am I going to do? They're not going to like me. I'm probably not going to fit in. They're not going to be my kind of people. I won't be their kind of person. So do you know what? As I keep thinking like this, I just talk myself out of it before I do it. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider that I really believe is powerful is actually using a podcast to expose yourself to the people you want to be exposed to. And so I learned this many years ago. Dr. Shefali Sabari, who is the child psychologist on Oprah Winfrey's show. And I reached out to her. And I've even got the message on my phone that I could read for you word for word if you want to. But the gist of it is, hi, Dr. Shefali. My name's Spencer Lodge. I've got one of the most successful podcasts here in the UAE. I've interviewed people like this, and this. My audience would be really inspired by you, and I would love you to come and inspire them on the show, share your wisdom, share your story, because they'll just get so much from it. And I know you're here in Dubai on this day. Okay, my fingers and toes are crossed. Please say yes. She responds to that message and she says, checked you out. The answer's yes. How, I don't know. I'm in 24 hours in Dubai, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we get her on the show. But what people are doing when you ask them, if you ask them to come and inspire an audience, you feed into people's ego. Please come and tell your story and inspire my audience in the way you inspired me. Anyone that reads that goes, oh no, maybe I can do a bit of inspiring. And so you can get people to come and share their story. And I can't tell you after 350 odd interviews how many relationships I've developed with very powerful, I've had billionaires on the show, 100 mega millionaires on the show, all this kind of stuff. I've had people that have changed the world. I've had people that have done epic things, people that have been in prison for crimes they didn't commit, the biggest diamond thief in the world. I've had, mafia bosses. I mean, I've had a whole section of different people, the best people in digital media in the world. I get them on the show just so I can sit and learn. I'm like, it's class. I see, to just download for free something you charge people to do, and that's what we do. So building a network through a podcast is a very fun and engaging and easy thing to do. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is you don't need this, okay? You don't. You need a Zoom H6, which is a recording device. You need 2 plug-in microphones, and you go and meet that person. You shove the recording device there. I chuck you a mic. I have a mic, and we get on with it, okay? Because we're going to spend an hour building a connection. Even if we haven't got video, it doesn't matter. A load of people listen. It's not about the audience. Ken Rakowski, who did the first ever podcast, okay, he did the first ever podcast. He did it on Mark Cuban's digital platform in 1996, okay? Done thousands of episodes. Ken Rakowski says, it's nothing to do with the audience. If you're using it in the way you want to use it, it doesn't matter how many downloads you have. Even if your mum is the only one that watches it, you're building a relationship with somebody. That's the power.
Yeah, so putting yourself in the right places for networking and then also having some kind of podcast or show that you can invite people on. It's like today, like to be able to sit down, I've just come to Dubai for this week, set some things up here, and then you being open to come on the show and share your wisdom, to be able to sit down for over an hour and have this conversation is just, phenomenal. What a great networking tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you think in 2 weeks' time or whenever this episode comes out, you can't reach out to me and say, hey, Spence, episode's out. I really enjoyed my time with you. I've got a couple of questions. I wonder if I can pick your brains. Do you think I will say no?
Only one way to find out.
I won't say no. Okay. But that's the same with everybody I do. I can then say to them 2 weeks later, I've got a couple more questions. Can I pick your brains? And what happens is I say to people, I know everything about you because you came on my show. Do you know everything about me? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, what do you know about me? You've got a podcast. Okay. Do you know what I do for a living? And they go, no. Can I tell you? They're like, yeah, of course you can. And I explain what I do and I generate business opportunities just like that.
Yeah. And genuine connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because to have this from like, if business comes off the back of a podcast like this, it's like how amazing you've actually understand someone at a deeper level where it's not just like surface level. Like you literally find out about their story, about what drives them, about their behaviors, about their emotions, about their life. And then if you do business after that, it's much deeper connection that you have with someone. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Spencer, thanks so much for coming on. And we'll leave it for one final question. What would be one golden nugget that you could leave the listeners with today?
That would depend on who the audience is. So tell me who the audience is so I can give them the best information possible.
Amazing. Entrepreneurs, creators, they've already created a level of success in their life. Something under the surface is still missing. So they're looking to take their life to the next level, like success is important, but also to create this inner fulfillment at the same time.
The one piece of golden information or advice I can give to all of those people is make yourself a promise that you will go and volunteer once a month somewhere and help others that are less fortunate than you. It will change your life. It literally will change your life.
Amazing. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you.
Good to see you, man.